Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeffrey Mishlove. Our topic today is learning from the voices of instrumental trans communication. My guest is Dr. Anabela Cardoso, who was Portugal's senior woman diplomat, serving as Consul General in the United States, Spain, and France, as well as Chargé de Affaires in Japan and in India. She is the author of 3 books, Electronic Voices, Contact with Another Dimension, Electronic Contact with the Dead, What Do the Voices Tell Us?, and Glimpses of Another World, Impressions of an EVP Operator. This is the second interview with Dr. Cardoso. If you haven't watched the first one, I recommend that you do that. It will really help you to better follow this one, and I'm linking to it right now, right there on the right side of your screen. If you haven't seen it, you can click there and watch the first one. Dr. Cardoso currently resides in Spain, and now I'll switch over to the internet video. Welcome, Anabela. What a pleasure it is to be with you once again.
Thank you, Jeff. The same here. It is a joy to speak with you, really, because you know about the subject. Your questions are interesting and intelligent. And so, of course, I like to reply to them because this is what I like, ITC.
Well, I'm encouraging our viewers to make sure that they watch our previous interview first, because you explained in great detail the history of instrumental trans communication and how you got involved in the field. Today, we're going to look more at what we can learn from what these voices are actually saying. And you have decades of experience, not only in terms of your own conversations, but also your knowledge of other people working in the field and what they report as well. So I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion.
I certainly hope so, yes. May I make a remark there? Decades means 2 decades, not 5. 2 decades, Jeff.
Oh, did I just say 5 decades?
No, you did not say 5. You said you have decades in the plural. Decades can be 2 or 6. So I say 2. So that it. Not that old, I mean. That's what I mean by this. Not that old. I am not. I am old, but not that old.
Oh, okay. Well, but 2 decades is a long time still to be involved in this field. It really puts you at the forefront. And also, I didn't even mention for our viewers that for many years you were the editor and publisher of the ITC journals. So you've been in touch with the worldwide community of people experimenting in this area.
True, that is absolutely correct, yes. As we said in the last interview, I started, indeed, in 1998, so we are, well, it's 23 years, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that impressed me the most about our previous conversation was that you were able to engage in conversations, back and forth, 2-way conversations, not only with entities like Carlos de Almeida, who is apparently very experienced in this area and not somebody you knew personally, but also your own family members.
Exactly. That is correct. Yes, I did. with Carlos de Almeida, my main communicator. Let's say, using a word which belongs to our reality, the coordinator, let's put it this way, of the Portuguese-Brazilian group, which had another person as coordinator, so it must have been a double coordination. And that one was, apparently, allegedly, the famous father, Landel de Moura, who was one of the precursors of the radio, you know, the science of radio. Landel de Moura, a famous, I don't know if he was a Jesuit, but we are speaking of the 19th century, I think. And so, allegedly, these two people, Carlos de Almeida from the Portuguese side and this scientist, Father Landel de Moura, were the ones who coordinated this Portuguese-Brazilian group, which is the group that spoke with me. And then, at the time of Carlos de Almeida, as I told you during our last interview, one day I asked, "How are you, Carlos de Almeida?" That's how I used to speak with him, very informally. And he said, "I'm ready to go." That was the last recording I have of him indirect. Not indirect, directly, I mean, indirect conversation. And since then, I have heard of him, but I could not communicate with him directly, yes? Because, as they told me from Rio do Tempo, anonymously, he had transited into another plane of consciousness, of existence, which is to say the same thing. And since then, I have had conversations with other people who sometimes identify themselves, if I ask, sometimes, not always, and give their names, but I don't recall knowing them. Maybe I did when I was a schoolgirl or whatever. I don't know, but I don't remember these names. But other times, many times, the most of the times, it's my family members, yes. My father, my grandmother, my grandparents, my brother Luis, my family members. Almost all of them have spoken. My dogs too, as I told you, with human voices, little voices, identifying themselves, because as they have explained to us, not only to me, but to other operators, the communication is through thought, which is then reflected or transformed into words, human words, of course, the only ones we understand, modulated from the radio waves. So, people ask, how can a dog speak with a human voice? The dog is not speaking with a human voice. She is, in this case, Nisha, she's conveying thoughts, which then are transformed into human speech, because that's the only speech we understand, we humans. And so I have spoken with many of my family members, yes, indeed, friends also.
I understand that one of the main characteristics of these voices is that they speak in very short phrases, usually just a few words at a time, not a lengthy description like I'm speaking at the moment.
It depends on the communicator from the next dimension, because Carlos de Almeida used to speak very lengthy speech. Very lengthy. It could be half an hour. It could be 40 or 50 minutes also. I would ask, he would reply. To me. And sometimes with things that I did not know. Even. But my close family members, sometimes it's also that type of conversation, but not like Carlos de Almeida. No, it's true. But I once asked, why is it that my father, for instance, who speaks practically every single time that the voices speak, why is it that my father or my brother, my grandmother, my other grandparents, all of them, do not speak like Carlos de Almeida? Because Carlos de Almeida is no longer there, but he must have transmitted his knowledge to them, since they are of the Portuguese group. And they replied to me very well, a non-identified voice. The voice said, his knowledge, yes, but not his experience.
Very interesting.
That makes a lot of sense because, of course, Carlos de Almeida apparently had a lot of experience. He had been there for a long time in terms of time, which we know do not exist in this next dimension. The knowledge, yes, the theory, but not experience, not his experience, because he could speak very well for long periods. And my family members, short voices, yeah, sometimes are not so short, but then you cannot understand everything of what they say, and so on. Each voice or each recording is a different one from the next one, yeah.
So there are lots of individual differences. You mentioned, for example, in your book that when you hear your family members speak like your father, it's not the voice that you remember. He identifies himself, so you know it is your father, but the vocal tones are not the same.
Yes, because only maybe once or twice I said, yeah, this voice sounds like my father's voice. Only once or twice, maybe 3 times, I'm not sure. But normally he says, it's the father. É João Cardoso. His name was John. É João Cardoso. É o pai. Hundreds of times. It's your father. Bella. They call me Bella. Bellinha. Bella. Not Anabela. But the communicators do call me Anabela. It's interesting also. And it's a voice that does not sound like my father's voice, but we understand that they don't have the vocal tract, is it? I asked exactly that and then said, why don't your voices sound like your human voices? Something like this. And the feminine voice replied to me, the voice said, you can be sure that we masquerade. They do us a sonogram. A sonogram, which is a voice print, yeah, as you know, because having this channel, excellent, and so of such high reputation, and so you must, also, of course, you know what is a sonogram. So the voice said this, and then I thought that in Luxembourg, the famous high entity that they called the technician said the voices are synthesized, which is practically the same that the voice told me, this feminine voice. They are synthesized. We try our utmost, whatever he said, to reproduce the human voice, which means they not always achieve it. I would say very seldom they achieve it. But he said very clear, it's in all the Luxembourg reports, the voices are synthesized. Synthesized, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
So when the voices told me from Rio do Tempo, you can be sure that we masquerade. Masquerade must be a metaphor, which means it's not her own voice. They do us a sonogram, a voice print. I mean, to explain more than this, I don't know, because I'm not there, and I don't know. That's what they say.
But they do tell you quite a bit about what their experience is like on the other side.
They have told me quite a bit, especially Carlos de Almeida, yes, and my father also, other communicators non-identified, because they just say, we are Rio do Tempo. One important thing that they say, which I did not mention in the last interview, they always speak of their work as a work of them all together. All together. It's a joint work. Let's put it this way. I'm not sure if this is the right word in English, but perhaps it is. It's a joint work. They work all together.
It's a collective.
A collective, yes, yes, collective work. Once Carlos de Almeida said about my father, we speak jointly, which, as you say now, collectively. Of course, in Portuguese, we speak all together, which means it does not mean that the individuality, the personality is annihilated, not at all. But it means that at least to achieve this ITC work through the direct radio voices, which are already a form of advanced communication, so it is considered, and it belongs to ITC, not so much EVP. They must do it collectively. And a friend of mine, this is very interesting, I'm thinking about this right now. A friend of mine who came here years ago, she was a teacher, she's now retired in Portugal. In Portuguese literature or whatever, she was a teacher. And she came here so that I would tell her the basics of experimenting, which I did. Then she went back home, she started experimenting, and she even had nice direct radio voices also, identified as Rio do Tempo, also as with me. And she told me this, which is very interesting. Once a voice shouted from the radio, yeah? We are all fused. Fuse means the same, isn't it?
Or connected.
Yeah, connected, yes. But the word that the voice used, I have heard the voice. She probably sent it to me. I must have it in my computer. It's fused into each other, which does not, and I repeat, because I want this idea to be clear, which does not annihilate individual personality. On the other hand, it complements it. Because, of course, if I am together, let's say, one mind, with you and Carlos and my little cat who is not here, Cleo, and so on. I mean, we are richer. Isn't it? Our mind, this one mind, is richer. So this applies, of course, as they say, to the group soul.
Another point that you make in your book, which I found quite interesting, is this idea that the people with whom you communicate require permission from some other level that is part of this collective that is responsible for this kind of electronic communication.
True. That's what they have said, not only to me. From the first recorded experimenter, operator, that I told you about, I think the book was published 1925 in Brazil, Oscar Dargonel, Voices of the Beyond Through the Telephone, precious little book, of which I have the first edition. It was a gift to me from some Brazilian students who came here to give to study PhD or something. Anyway, this permission requisite is already mentioned, as it was mentioned throughout the communications. I don't remember Jurgensen. I don't think I saw anything about this permission in Jurgensen, but I saw it in Raudive. in Rodriguez's book, Breakthrough. And then the Harsch-Fischbach, it's said over and over again, Adolf Holmes, and the others, and myself also, as one of the last ones, yeah? Permission from whom? People don't like to hear this here in this world. They don't like permission. What is this thing of permission? They are not free. Oh yes, they are free, but not free to make nonsensical things, I say. That's for sure. Not free like in this world. You make whatever you want, and the result is what we are seeing in the planet, isn't it? This is the result of humans making what they want to make or what they want to do, which is absolutely wrong. No. Of course, in the next dimension, apparently, I emphasize apparently, because I've not been there, I'm not yet there, and so on. Now, we know all this. Apparently, it's high entities who direct this more advanced contacts, like the computer texts, like the images, like the direct radio voices, who give this permission. Yes, not humans. So the permission is granted by higher beings who apparently direct these groups that communicate with this planet as they will communicate with other planets that we don't know of.
In other words, what I gather from this is that on the other side, deceased humans are interacting with non-human entities of some sort.
Absolutely correct. That's exactly true. That's what they say of non-human nature. Never have been humans. They have never been humans. They are of a different nature, of a higher level of consciousness. It's all to do with consciousness, isn't it? And deceased humans and non-humans, as I said. It's a mixed, the group soul, I mean, already this, it's this wonderful man that I very much like, Friedrich Myers, already conveyed the group soul through Geraldine Cummins. It's very similar to what he said, Myers. The group soul, apparently, is constituted by many different beings. In our case, earthen beings of the earth, not necessarily humans. I mean, dogs, trees, minerals, stones, different levels of consciousness once again. Isn't it? This is the group soul that Myers described through Geraldine Cummins, and which then was confirmed by the technician in Luxembourg and by my own communications. They used to say things that to a normal human will seem a little bit nonsensical, but it's true, and they are recorded. Let's say, let's thank the name of a fish that helped us in this. Carlos, remember, I'm sure, that helped us in this communication. The name of a fish, not personal name, the kind of fish. So it means the fish was involved in the communication. In this case that I remember, there are other cases. So, but this corresponds to what Myers conveyed apparently from another level of consciousness. So it's very similar. As a matter of fact, the technician in Luxembourg said, I am using Myers' classification, he said, to describe a little bit this story of the levels and so on, and the composition of the groups and etc. He said this, I am using Myers' classification. I think this was the word. So yes, very interesting, but very difficult to grasp for people who are not in the subject, I would say.
Well, Myers apparently dictated this wonderful book called The Road to Immortality through the automatic writing of Geraldine Cummins. And in that book, as I recall, he describes 7 different levels. And the idea is that as we evolve in our consciousness or spirituality, we rise up through these levels, so that when Carlos de Almeida told you he's ready to leave, I assume that meant he's ready to rise up to a different level.
Exactly. And then I confirmed that. I confirmed it all with Rio do Tempo, without names. Yes? With Rio do Tempo voices without names. I asked, did Carlos de Almeida get in or transited into the 4th level? 4th. Because apparently they are in the 3rd level. I mean, normal Rio do Tempo communicators, including Carlos de Almeida. At the time he spoke with me. And he said, they replied, these voices replied, yes, you could call it that. The 4th level. Yes, because I was speaking, of course, because I had read Myers also. Said, is that the 4th level that he transited into? And they said, the voices said, yes, you could call it that. The 4th level. And then, as I also said in the last interview, it's a world of the sun, but not your sun. It's another sun. And I can't remember now, but Myers speaks of this world of light or whatever he uses, and Rio do Tempo said, it's a world of the sun, but not your sun. It is a sun, but not your sun. Of course, not our sun. So, yeah, I'm always a little bit uncomfortable because I know very well, this I have written in my books and other places, papers, normal people, not your listeners, majority of them, perhaps not, but in general, people think this is all crazy, what I am saying, because they're not within the subject, not only of ITC, any subject to do with the so-called other dimensions, paranormal, whatever, supernatural, whatever you want to call it. And then they say, all nonsense, that's all nonsense. Just imagine a sun, but it's not your sun, and all this nonsense. But this is speaking from a very limited perspective, isn't it? We don't know all the conditions.
Well, when somebody uses a word like nonsense, it is nonsense literally in that it's not part of our normal sensory experience. We only perceive 3 dimensions of space through our senses and 1 dimension of time. And you're talking about a reality that is completely apart from our sensory world.
Exactly that, Jeff. It is, we are from another, my communicator said, and identified themselves perfectly. It was a very long communication with chants and all that chants, beautiful chants. We are the dead, we are Rio do Tempo, but beautiful music. I'm not a singer. Anyway, they said, It finished like this. It was over 1 hour of communication then, 1999, I think. They said, we are from another dimension. We are from beyond time. Further than time, beyond time. So, no time. So, of course, this, as you said, not nonsense, doesn't make sense from our perspective, of course. It doesn't mean it is wrong at all, of course.
Well, I do have the impression that the whole ITC EVP movement is related to people who were technically advanced, humans who were scientists and engineers who died and went over to the other side and had an interest in seeing, like Edison, for example, can they use technology over there to communicate back to us?
Exactly, and apparently they did. Not only Edison, Tesla also communicated in Luxembourg to the Harsch-Fischbach, well, and the others that were present at their house. Many were present, as we spoke last time. Mary and Joe Uphoff and Ernst Senkowski and François Brun, Ralph Dettermeyer, and so on. Andreas Resch. And yes, they said that these scientists worked in this communication, in this type of communication from their side. Yes. Here, from our side, for instance, I'm not technical. I'm not a technical person. I'm a humanist. Never been a technical person. But I managed to get through somehow. But from my side, I put no technical proficiency into this. But from their side, yes, it seems that is the case. And also, as I think I said, they have to work a lot. I mean, it's not easy. Just the voices appear by miracle. No miracle at all. It's a lot of effort, a lot of work, as they have told me. It's the voice of effort. It's the voice of love. Two things together.
Well, you have been, I think it would be fair to say, Anabela, far more successful at establishing ongoing two-way communication with these voices than most of the other people who experiment in this area. And I wonder, could it be related to a past lifetime? Does it have, what is your suspicion of why you've had such success?
Straightforward things. Not esoteric things. I think, because I don't know anything about reincarnation, except that they told me, because I was very worried about reincarnation, because I don't like it. I don't like the concept. But that doesn't mean it does not exist, of course. So I asked, does reincarnation exist? You must know this. I've written this many times. Only when there is no other way. Between brackets, it's always like this, the sentences. Only when there is no other way. For spiritual development. Then on another occasion, I explicitly asked this. For spiritual development, they replied, yes. Okay. So, why do I get these contacts? Because I'm very perseverant. Yes. I am very dedicated. I absolutely love my communicators. I have immense love for them, concern, preoccupation, interest, and I'm extremely interested in the next worlds. In the plural, maybe all this. Also because I have, as Jürgensen used to say, very good hearing capacity. So this is easier for me. Also because I speak several languages. Maybe also. It's all together. So, you see, past life, I don't know, because I really don't know. I'm not a person well informed in this, esoteric literature and so on, because this was never my field, as I told you. I am a diplomat, slight interest when I was a young girl and so on. And then this happened to me. But I mean, I'm not a parapsychologist. I'm not a person of the study of the field of the psychic phenomena and so on. No, I have a different formation, which is much more normal, much more normal. So I don't know. I know something about reincarnation. I know some of the books that were published about it. Some. I met Jan Stevenson here in one of the Bial conferences. and so enjoyed speaking with him, and so on. But I lived in India also, so in India I got acquainted, but not with the study of the cases, more with people who told me, well, this happened. Oh, yes, madam. This is all a story. I used to say, no, not a story. In my village, and so on and so on. They would tell me about it. So, who knows? Only God knows. As one of my communicators once said to me, I don't remember. I remember, because I said, Philippe, who had a wonderful contact with me, long one too, he said, the unconscious of God covers all. This was the beginning of one of the sentences. The unconscious of God covers all, and then continue. The rest is not so important. I don't remember now. And the next day I asked, why did Philippe say the unconscious of God covers all? I said to them, I thought that God was full consciousness, not the unconsciousness. And the voice replied, feminine voice replied, non-identified, said, so did I. She said, so did I. Only God knows. She said, only God knows. This was very funny because only God knows. Exactly. So only God knows. I replied to you, Jeff. So who knows?
One of the things you write about is the idea that on the other side, they apparently have bodies of some sort. They're not bodies like ours, but then it's not as if they're just pure energy beings.
No, true. Because they have told me, and they have told others also, the Harsch-Fischbach included. We also have a body, they told me. It's a much more, how did they say? It's much, I remember. It's a much more beautiful, much more flexible was the word, body than yours. It's made of a kind of electricity, they told me. And the other day, reading Rainer Holbes, who is because he still lives, now 80-something years old, German journalist, who followed the work of Klaus Schreiber closely, intimately. He accompanied Schreiber's work with the images, daily almost. He lived in Luxembourg, and Schreiber did not live far, lived in Germany, yeah? I found in this Rainer Holbes book, which I knew of, I'd seen the pictures of Schreiber's trance images, but I had not read the book. And someone lent it to me. And his daughter, Karine, who apparently was the one who taught him how to experiment for the images through EVP voices, she said, and I found this very interesting. Schreiber, this must have been 1985. I am much after this. She said, the girl said, we are made of electricity, she said. We are... I read the Italian translation. Siamo fatti di elettricità. We are made of electricity, something like this. And I said, you see, Rio do Tempo. I told this to Senkowski. But Senkowski must have known, he knew everything. Rio do Tempo told me that their bodies are made of a kind, not our electricity, a type of electricity, a kind of electricity. And I found this in the book, one of the books about Klaus Schreiber, and the daughter, little daughter, she was 17 or 18, when she died, she was the first one who communicated with him through EVP, said, we are a kind, we are made, or we are a kind, I don't know about made, but we are, is there, a kind of electricity, or fatti di elettricità. We are made of electricity, something. No, this for sure, electricity, she said, that their bodies were. Naturally, these bodies are not perceptible to us, which does not mean, as you very well know, that they are not bodies. Bodies that we cannot see. Sometimes we can feel or touch, but not always. And that they say they have much more beautiful, much more flexible, they said.
Well, I am under the impression from your writing and the writing of others that there is a sense of illusion, that from each level, the level below it is sort of an illusion. For example, the Hindus, you write about, have this word Maya. They claim that the physical world that we experience is actually, even though it's very real to us from another level, it's an illusion. And then at that level, the bodies, and I've heard descriptions, they have houses, you write about, they drink coffee, for example, and on the other side, that it's very real to them, but it's also from another higher level, it's an illusion.
But you see, what Carlos de Almeida told me about this, the illusion was, I am already free. When he spoke that he was leaving or that he had left, or well, simultaneously, I think, I am already free of illusion, which means his lower level of when he spoke with me was an illusion. And the more you advance towards the highest goal of spirituality, as you said, of fusion with the divine, let's put it this way, the less illusionary it is. I mean, you advance towards reality, isn't it? Toward reality. Full reality. The truth. And this is reality. And ours, as the next level of life, the third level from where they speak with me, it's illusion. And when Carlos de Almeida left, he said, I am already free of illusion, which means he's leaving behind illusion. And when we get out of this jail, of this prison, which is our physical world and our body, we will advance toward one step more, not many steps, one step more, toward reality, which we will attain, who knows, we cannot count it in time, in periods of time, isn't it? The time is just a metaphor. But illusion is our world also. As that other, very good, I liked it very much, Raymond, Oliver Lodge's book called Raymond, he speaks about this illusion, and that they have houses built with bricks, but the bricks are not our bricks, and so on. Of course, they are not our bricks, but they are still bricks to them. Isn't it, Jeff? So it's all levels of illusion.
As I recall, Frederick Myers suggested that the illusion is created to help ease the transition as people move from one stage to another. And the illusion is created, I guess, by beings who are at the higher level, and they create these illusions for the benefit of the deceased people and other beings, as you point out, to help them make the adjustment.
Certainly. For instance, they were in Luxembourg when one of the images that were received, I think Professor Senkowski was there when the image appeared on the computer screen, was a fountain of Luxembourg of one of the gardens of Luxembourg, but with differences. And then they explain, or the technician or surgeon Salter, that this was a way, exactly what you just said, to facilitate the adjustment of the ones who had gone from Luxembourg here into the next world, to adjust to that new level of reality. And this was a way of making it easier, as you said. Yeah, exactly. This is very clear there in this explanation that they gave directly to Professor Senkowski, although in Luxembourg. Yeah, they said this, it's a way that we have to make them adapt more easily.
Which suggests that we are being cared for, that there are beings in these higher planes who are concerned for our welfare, for our benefit, ultimately for our spiritual growth. And I know another one of the topics that you deal with, which I know many of my viewers are concerned with, is the nature of suffering. There seems to be so much suffering here on this physical plane. Surely a person like yourself involved in diplomacy understands the world situation is full of refugees and crises of every imaginable sort. But you describe in your writing how those on the other side, especially those who have suffered, talk about the benefit, the purpose of some of this suffering. It's not all in vain.
Not at all in vain. Also, the higher beings, like the technician, they called him the technician, but he was a higher being. They just called him the technician because he directed, from the point of view of technical organization, the equipment in Luxembourg. He said that suffering is indispensable. They also told me the same thing, and I didn't know at the time about Luxembourg. Suffering is very important. This is what they told me in direct voice, and I was always very worried, very concerned with suffering. Still am, and I asked them, but does it have a meaning? And the reply was, it has all the meaning. That's the way the voices reply. And yes, and in the high entities, like the technician in Luxembourg, repeated this many times. The suffering is very important. It is very important for collective growth. For growth. I would say that when I asked, because I'm a deep lover of animals, any animal, especially dogs and cats, the ones I know best, but any animal, I said, what about animals? How do they grow toward a higher level? And they replied to me, through the vicissitudes, the difficulties of the natural law. So you can imagine, not difficult to imagine. These trees in the fires, the trees, which I consider beings of high consciousness, the eagles, the foxes, the rabbits, the suffering of these animals being burned alive. This is a vicissitude, in this case, vicissitude of the natural law, in this case, created by humans. So, this is also complex. Perhaps humans would realize at some point, still far away point, in my view, regrettably, that this is like this, that all these actions result in all this terrible suffering, not only for the non-human animals, for the humans also. Look at those in Greece or in California. richer in California than in Greece, but the problem is the same, isn't it? They have lost everything, lost everything. And the cattle died, burned alive. I can't even think of this. And I get sick. I get ill, literally. And so it's the same in Greece or in California, in Turkey or in Italy. The same. It applies to everybody. And this is suffering caused by humans through their carelessness, through their greed, and so many other things, isn't it? But perhaps I would believe that's the way it is. It is necessary. My soul refuses this thought, but I am sure it is. It's an exercise of learning. Very difficult one. Very hard one. Couldn't be harder. Yeah? So, let's hope that humans learn. I'm not very optimistic. I'm not an optimist person. But let's hope. Hope is always there.
Well, I'm like every human. I'm very attached to a comfortable life. I try to avoid suffering in my own life, and yet the very idea that consciousness survives the death of the body suggests that one of the lessons is that we can endure no matter what happens.
Absolutely. I agree. You see, years ago, it was in 2006, the fire here in Galicia, where I have this house, as I've told you, the fire that here, 15% of this community, of this area, region of Galicia, it's a region really, burned, 15%. And the fire entered into my garden. The police came to evacuate the house and the dogs and me and all that. And I was there in the garden. At the time, I had a maid from Mongolia, Larissa. And we were with pipes, and the fire would fall on my clothes, I remember. It happened to be a pair of shorts that I had bought in California, by the way. And the fire would get all burnt, my clothes. Because the fire was there. It burned 2 trees in my garden. And suddenly, this was interesting. All fear disappeared. Very interesting, I think. And I could only think, the only idea in my mind was, fire redeems. Redeems in the Christian sense of redemption, of redeems. Fire cleanses, you know. Very strange. If you are surrounded by fire, as I was, burning my clothes because it would fall on my clothes and burn them, you know. And I said, that's all. I was not scared. I was not worried. No. That's all that came to my mind. And there was a tranquility, sudden peace. And it was all I could think of. Fire cleanses. It redeems. And I was not worried. I was not scared. Suddenly, I had been before, just a few seconds before. But suddenly, when the fire came closer and closer and started burning the branches of trees in my own garden, and we were with pipes, you know, because I live on the top of a hill there, nothing else. And the fireman didn't have water and so on. And I did not worry. It's interesting, isn't it?
Anabela, that's a wonderful story. It reminds me of a time in my own life when I was surrounded by people who threatened to kill me, and I felt an extraordinary sense of peace at the time. It's real. It was a blessing, actually, and a great gift. I don't think everybody is so blessed under those circumstances.
How incredibly, sense of peace. You said it, you know. How incredible that you felt it too, yeah? And you were in great danger, yeah?
Yes, I was at the time. But when these people saw how calm I was, it frightened them, and they went away, as a matter of fact.
But you see, it's this southern, there must be, I don't know, but maybe it's a self-defense of consciousness or whatever, or it's a divine or our dear ones in the next level or whatever. But there is something there a little bit strange, isn't there? Yeah? That you are not in panic. I suddenly was no longer in panic, as you said.
Well, Anabela, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad to have had this time with you. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Jeff. It's I who thank you, because it couldn't have been pleasanter. I really enjoy speaking with you. Very, very nice, because you are very knowledgeable. You are very developed, let's say developed in all senses of the word. Mentally, spiritually, I can feel that. And so, of course, it is very nice to speak with you. I thank you for the opportunity and certainly wish you all the very best.
And for those of you watching or listening, thank you for being with us.